During this Easter season, we have been looking at what Jesus calls us to do in living a resurrected life. Understanding that after what happened to Jesus on Easter morning, when the women went to the tomb and found it empty, and as Jesus began to reveal himself in spirit form again and again to his disciples, and physically eating with them and breaking bread with them and teaching them yet again the things that he had taught them while he was with them. And today we focus on one that seems kind of countercultural. In fact, it is countercultural. Practicing and understanding this virtue of humility. What is humility? Especially in a world where we are often told and we are advertised to and we are talked to about how we are supposed to be about me, about the I. That we're supposed to be about improving ourselves, bettering ourselves. Talk about advertising and all the products that are supposed to make us better. They're supposed to make us stronger. They're supposed to make us stand out. And yet we have this countercultural message from Jesus today that says to be a truly great person, we need to humble ourselves. We need to become servants of others. That the greatest among us will be humbled, and the humbled will become the greatest through that sacrifice and through that service. But humility can be one of those terms that we often don't like to think about because of that countercultural message that supposedly we're supposed to think less about ourselves, that somehow we're not supposed to take any pride or take any heart in the gifts that we've been given, the things that we know that we're called to do, that sometimes we feel like we're supposed to just kind of sit back and be meek. But humility, I think, is best defined in the way that C.S. Lewis defines it, when he says that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Richard Proudfoot, I think, was a great model of humility. Some of you may be familiar with Richard's name, especially some of those who have served at Feed My Starving Children. Richard started Feed My Starving Children all the way back in 1987. In the mid-'80s, he had gone to Haiti. He had taken a trip down there, a mission trip, and he saw the poverty, and he saw the children on the streets who were constantly coming up to him and begging for anything that they could get. And it touched his heart in such a deep and powerful way that when he came back to the United States, he began to do whatever he could to try and get food down to Haiti. And what he started to do was collect anything that he could get his hands on, and he was collecting a lot of what he could get his hands on cheaply. And so he started sending food every single month, but what he was sending was ho-hos, Twinkies, and ding-dongs, and leftover sugary cakes, and it was going down, and all of a sudden, about a month later, he was getting a letter from one of the agencies down there that said, "Thank you, but no thank you. Stop sending this food." Because the kids' stomachs couldn't handle it. That sugar and the fat and the things that we sort of take for granted sometimes, it just had no nutritional value for those kids. Now, the human ego being what it is, Richard could have taken that in one of two ways. He could have been offended. He could have said, well, if they don't want my help, well, I'm just not going to do anything. They can fend for themselves. Or he could do what he ended up doing. Putting his pride aside, putting aside his ego and saying, you know what? In my haste for wanting to do something really good, I didn't necessarily think through all the consequences. But I really want to help. I really want to make a difference. And so he sought out the experts, the people he knew that had the knowledge and the wisdom in order to prepare a meal that could be cheaply produced, but yet have a maximum nutritional and dietary impact for those kids that were going to receive it. And so he went down to the University of Minnesota, and he started talking to their nutritionists and their dietitians, and they started to work together, and they put together what they now call these manna rice packs that have all the staple ingredients and nutritional ingredients that they need in order to grow and to have healthy lives and healthy bodies. And they found that they could actually produce these meals for just pennies apiece. And then it became about packaging and distribution. How do we get these meals to where they need to go? And all of a sudden it became a network of people that were working internationally around the world to make sure that when a box of Feed My Starving Children meals went to the Congo or went down to Nicaragua or Guatemala or the Philippines or wherever it was going, that it was actually getting into the hands of the children and the families, and not just the politicians, that it wasn't running into red tape, that boxes weren't being stopped for inspection at the border, but that these meals were actually going. And that took a lot of work. It took a lot of people to make that work. But it took one man setting aside his own ego, being humble enough to know that he needed help to be able to seek that out. And you know, in 1994, when they really started distributing meals on a sort of a mass level, Feed My Starving Children was doing about 400,000 meals a year. Today, 2014, 2015, they're doing 229 million meals. They are now into their second generation of children who have been given life and new life because someone had a servant's heart. And that servant's heart spread to the spirit of all those who have come along to work and to volunteer at Feed My Starving Children. Last year they passed 1 billion total meals packed and distributed. That's an incredible thing. That when we set aside our own ego, when we set aside our own pride and focus on the needs of others, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And it's the same way in the church. Today we have the joy of welcoming in 2 new members into the faith and family of Jesus Christ. They are here to witness to their faith. to witness to their service, that you would just be amazed at these two young women. How much, even not only in these past 2 years of confirmation, but as they've grown in this church, how they have served our community, how they have served our church, how they are serving our world. And we're called to come alongside them, to encourage and support them in their gifts for ministry, but to be discerning our own gifts for ministry, so that when the time comes when we are called, we too will be able to respond like Richard Proudfit. To be able to see that what we can do together is far, far more important and far more beneficial than what we can just achieve on our own. That humility is truly one of the greatest virtues of living a resurrected life. Because without it, we don't recognize the grace and the forgiveness and the love of God that comes to us each and every day. So this week, as we engage in our lives, even in those little moments, let us make sure that we are looking at how we can serve others, how we can have a humble heart. For it will truly be the greatest gift that we can offer our world this day, this week. Amen. Amen.
I believe in the Son. I believe in the risen one. I believe I've overcome by the power of His blood.